You are not going to believe what came from the Dollar Tree. I found 47 hacks that will blow your mind. I'm going to take you to every section in the dollar store for clever sewing room ideas, quick sewing tricks, and even a few projects that you can actually make. I'm talking organizers, tools, and supplies that look way too good to be from the dollar store. These are the kind of hacks that will make you say, wait, that's from the Dollar Tree? So grab your sewing machine, your scissors, and maybe a little self-control because you're going to want to try every single one of these. This first project is probably my favorite. We're going to grab a mini picture frame from the picture frame aisle. This is styled as a table placer, maybe for a wedding, but we are going to open it up and use it to make a pin cushion. So you're also going to need some stuffing and a piece of fabric. I'm just using a leftover charm square, but you can use a scrap and a glue gun and glue sticks. So open up the picture frame and then we're going to take the back off and take out the piece of paper inside and the glass. We're not going to need the glass, so you can set that aside. Then we're going to use the little piece of paper inside as a template to cut out a piece of cardstock. Just any thicker paper, cardboard, or even a cereal box will work for this. Now we're going to glue the fabric to this little piece of cardboard. So flip your fabric over. Just start gluing with your glue gun and wrapping the fabric around to the cardboard. This fabric's a little big. You want about an inch around on each side of the cardboard. And then we're gonna have more fabric than we have cardboard. So you're just gonna kind of gather it a little bit with the glue gun. It doesn't have to be perfect. It's gonna look good once we get it in the picture frame. This is gonna give us a billowy top that will make our pin cushion fluff out of the picture frame. Once you have done 3 sides, we're going to leave the 4th side open and stuff it with your stuffing. Just stuff it until you like the way it looks. Then add glue and flip that 4th side over. This one's a little trickier since we have stuffing in there. I just use my fingers for this, but if you have sewing clips, that will help you hold the glue while it dries. Once the glue has dried, we are just going to stick this into our picture frame as if it were a picture, and it's going to puff out the front, making an adorable display for pins. I love how cute and chic this is, and it is perfect next to your sewing machine to keep your pins handy. Next, head to the cosmetics section. I found these really cute hexagon holders. They have makeup sayings on them, eyes, face, and lips, but the back side doesn't have anything, so I just flipped it around to make the cutest little storage to set beside my sewing machine. This is perfect for holding pens, turning tools, rotary cutters, seam rippers, and pencils. I love that the little sections are different heights for different things. Here's another organizing hack. This is found in the organizing section, and these are really nice acrylic storage containers. They're only $1.25 each, and they are a really nice sturdy plastic. I love these because they're sectioned off and they're great for holding things like bobbins, elastic, clips, just any notions. I put these in a larger organizer to keep everything separated. The best part is these stack because they're so thick and nice. Next, we're going back to the picture frame aisle and grabbing one of these really cute 4x6 photo albums. I'm going to show you how to make an on-the-go embroidery kit with this album. For this project, grab some scrapbook or cardstock paper, cut down to 4x6 pieces, and then I'm using 2 charm squares. So I'm just going to glue the sides of the fabric to the paper, but not glue the middle. I'm just going to put these right on that charm square, and this is going to give me a place to put my needles inside of the photo album so that they're protected and won't snag on anything. Trim off that excess fabric. Now stick the embroidery needles into the fabric to keep them organized. You can even use the top of the paper to label what type of needles they are. Once that's done, you can stick your 4x6 paper with the needles right into your first photo flap. For the next one, I'm going to cut slits in the paper and fabric and then wrap embroidery thread around. This is great if you don't need a lot of embroidery thread or if you just have a couple colors. And then this will slip right into the photo album page again. For the other pages, you can add embroidery floss bobbins. You can even stick in a pair of little scissors. And now you have an on-the-go embroidery kit. This is great for hand sewing and embroidery projects. Now we're going back to the beauty section and grabbing a pedicure kit. These come in a bunch of colors, and we are going to use them to help us organize our stray bobbins. These bobbins are great in those acrylic holders, but some of them have threads coming off, so that's where these toe separators will come in handy. So there's 2 in this pack. You also get a nail file and like a cuticle thing. Make sure your thread on your bobbin is wrapped up, and then just stick it right inside that toe separator, and these will hold the rest of the thread on and keep them in place so that your threads don't get tangled. Each toe separator holds 4 bobbins, and this is just a super fast way to make sure your bobbins stay wound. Next, grab some chalk. Chalk is great for marking on fabric. This is just found in the school supply section. And here's a secret, Taylor's chalk is the same kind of chalk as school chalk. Just use that blunt edge to mark your fabric. You can use this on darker colors, but it also works on lighter colors. While you're in the school supplies section, grab some number 2 pencils. These are already sharpened, which is nice, and these are a Crayola brand. So we're going to tape 2 of these together to create a seam allowance adder. So all of my patterns on my website include seam allowance, so don't do this with my patterns, but if you're using another pattern that doesn't have seam allowance, tape 2 pencils together and then trace the size that you are using, and this will just add a seam allowance right onto it. You'll just need some backing paper, tape your pattern piece to that paper, then carefully trace the outer line. Your pencil is going to create 2 marks, one for the current pattern size and one for the added seam allowance. So when you go to cut out your fabric, use that outer line. So this will take out all the measuring of adding seam allowance. The next hack can be found in the kitchen section. This is a serving bowl, and it's just $1.25. This is a really nice big size. Sometimes when I'm making blankets or quilts, I want the corners to be rounded, but it's really hard to measure to get a rounded corner. So this hack involves just grabbing that bowl and using it to trace the corner to round it out. Make sure you line up the sides of the bowl with the straight edges and then trace the corner. Then you can just cut along that line that you drew. I recommend using a fabric marker for this. This is also a great hack if you need a circular piece of fabric. You can trace the entire bowl to get that perfect circle. And while you're in the kitchen section, we are going to pick up a funnel set. This is $1.25 and you get 3 funnels, which is so great. I use funnels all the time in my sewing to fill things up. So a lot of times I will use them for bean bags or lavender sachets, or even sometimes I pour glitter into projects. And I always have to go looking in the kitchen for a funnel. So this way I have my own set in the sewing room. They also have funnels in the craft section of the Dollar Tree, but they are tiny and won't hold very much. I think those are really just for glitter. So these ones are in the kitchen section and are great for sewing projects. On the wooden craft aisle, they have these mini blocks, and I'm going to show you how to make them into a fun design tool that you can use to design quilts or quilty projects. Grab these beauty blenders from the beauty section. We're going to use these as paint sponges. These are great because they don't leave marks. We'll also need Mod Podge and colored paint, plus some painter's tape. There are so many types of quilt blocks you can make with these blocks. To make half square triangles, tape along the diagonal of the blocks. First, we're going to make a bleed layer with the Mod Podge. So just get your beauty blender and use the Mod Podge, dab it onto the blocks. The Mod Podge will be a clear leak layer, so that if the paint leaks through the tape, it will be clear. Once that's dry, grab your acrylic paint, and we're gonna paint on the half square triangles. You can get creative and paint different colors on each side. Make sure you include some solid blocks. You can even do quarter square triangles. Now have fun arranging and rearranging these blocks to create your own quilt designs. Next, I have a great quilting hack for you. This is a napkin holder. This is available in the kitchen section. It is cute like a little rainbow and is great for holding rulers. This is perfect for all my quilting rulers and my little seams right tool, and it's great to just stick right by my sewing machine so everything is handy. Next, we're heading to the organization section. I found these mini little drawers that have pull-out drawers. They are so cute. Each one has 2 drawers and they are just the right size for so many sewing notions. These are so great for thread, seam rippers, and other sewing essentials, especially extra bobbins. You can even stash different machine feet in here, and I love that they are just the right size for thread. Each drawer can hold 3 large spools of thread. Next, I have a little craft project for you. We are just going to grab one of these wooden squares and some paint at the dollar store. I don't love Dollar Tree paint, so if you have your own paint, we just need 2 colors, and then grab some painter's tape, and we are going to make a decoration for your sewing room. We're going to start by painting the entire square white. This will be our background, and we want to give it a few layers, especially if you are using the Dollar Tree paint. It is super thin, so give it a few layers and use a hairdryer in between to speed up the drying process. Once you have your white background and it is dry, we are going to make a grid on the square. We're going to draw 9 quadrants, so use your ruler, and we're going to use 1 7/8 as our line to create 3 across and 3 down. Now we're going to use these little squares to create an Ohio Star quilt block. So first, grab your painter's tape, and we're going to tape off that center square and fill it in. Make sure you are pressing down really well on the sides of the painter's tape, and then use a paintbrush to paint that middle square with your second color. When your center square is dry, peel off the top 2 layers of the tape. Leave the bottom 2 layers. We are going to use them as we draw triangles. So we're going to tape off the triangles by taping from corner to corner in those bottom and top squares. So first we're going to do one of the sides of the triangle, and then once that's dry, we'll peel the tape off and tape off the other triangle. These are quarter square triangles, and they are making the points of our star block. Make sure your paint is super dry, and then you can tape off the rest of the triangle. We're going to do a triangle opposite the first one. Fill those in with paint, and then we're going to repeat the same process for the side middle squares. When you are all done with that, use some extra paint and a tiny little paintbrush to do some touch-ups. Then let this dry, and then you can find a spot in your sewing room for it. I just stuck it on a shelf with my fabric, and I love how cute and bold this is. Next, I'm heading to the medicine section where I found these really nice big pill boxes. These are so perfect for holding bobbins or even needles, and it's actually a pretty nice quality pill holder, and I love that the boxes are big enough to hold multiple bobbins and full machine needles. Here's another great bobbin storage solution. I found these organizer boxes in the craft section, and each of the little sections in this is big enough to hold a full bobbin and deep enough to close it. This is so cute because it's round and you can see all the colors from the top, so I love this as an easy, simple storage solution for bobbins. Over near the Tupperware, I found this dish rack. This is just a simple white wire dish rack, and it's so great for holding larger rulers in my sewing room. I have rulers and then some tools. I love being able to see them all and flip through quickly. Now heading over to the office supplies section, I'm going to grab some paper clips and a stack of Post-it notes. These are going to help me organize my works in progress. These Post-it notes have 2 colors and 4 pads in them, so it's a great deal for only $1.25. And I'm going to use these to help me organize my rows. So sometimes I like to put out all my rows of a quilt and then take them to my sewing machine. But the only problem is keeping them in order. So I am just going to take my row from left to right and then paper clip them together and use my Post-it to create a label for each row. That way I can keep my rows in order and grab them all and then head to the sewing machine so I don't have to keep going up and back. Next, I found this cute little basket near the floral section, and I could not leave it there because it's adorable. This has gold woven into it, and it's just a super cute little rope basket. This is super great for holding all those little essentials you need right by your sewing machine. I have it just tucked over here, and I just love the way this looks. Next, head to the makeup section and grab a powder brush. This is great for dusting off the little parts in your machine. Since I sew so much, I get threads and dust in here really quickly. So doing a little brush in my bobbin holder and around my needle area, about once a week is just great for machine maintenance. Now we're heading to the aisle with the cups and water bottles and grabbing a non-slip shelf liner. These are obviously made for lining shelves, but I'm going to put a little piece under my sewing machine pedal to keep it from slipping on my floor. Just cut out a little piece, you'll have plenty extra, and this is a great way to keep your pedal from sliding. I was so excited to find mason jars at the dollar store. $1.25 is a great price for a mason jar, and I'm going to show you how to make this mason jar into a sewing kit. So grab a mason jar, grab a fat quarter of fabric, or just use a scrap from your stash. We're also going to use a sewing kit. You can find these at the front of the store or in the craft section. The template for this project is available in the link in the description. I love little sewing kits so much, but usually the boxes they come in are really flimsy and you know they won't last. So in this project, I'm going to show you how to make a sewing kit with a mason jar, and we're going to just dump all these cool things that are in the kit inside the mason jar. The top is going to be a pincushion too. So this sewing kit is only $1.25. It has mini scissors, needles, thread, and even more. It has everything you need to go in a sewing kit. We're going to use the small template for this since it's not a wide mouth mason jar, and here's how we're going to do it. First, fuse interfacing to the back of your fabric, and then we're going to cut out one layer from the template. Sew around the circle about 1/4 inch from the edge with a base stitch, and then grab your lid to your mason jar and pull those stitches around until the size of the fabric matches the size of the metal. Use a glue gun to carefully glue that on to the metal lid. Use sewing clips to hold the fabric on as it dries. Keep gluing until you get close to where you started, but leave an opening for stuffing. Grab some fiber fill stuffing and stuff this pincushion to your liking. Once it's done, glue the remaining piece of fabric on there to hold all that stuffing in. Be careful not to burn your fingers. Now put just a little bit of glue in the ring of the mason jar around that edge and shove the pincushion in and tighten it around your jar until it's dry. Now you have a pincushion on top and a container inside for holding all your little sewing supplies. This makes such a great gift. You can give them to college students or anyone who needs a sewing kit on the go. Next, head to the container section. This is at the back of my store and it always has a ton of baskets. I never have enough places to put my works in progress, and so these project bins are perfect. They also have these smaller ones that come in 3-packs for only $1.25, and there's like a rectangle and then a long rectangle. So I love to have a big one to hold my fabric and then a smaller one to hold any notions or extra supplies that go in. You can even put quilting rulers that you know you're going to use, safety pins, your fabric pull, or just fabrics that you're collecting for a quilt project. These bins are such a great price, and I also love that you can kind of stack them up. So if you're short on space, these are a great way to hold different works in progress. You keep everything organized with all the supplies you need so you're always ready to go. I don't do a lot of yarn crafts, but I always love looking at yarn and feeling it. I love this color that I found in the craft section for just $1.25, and these are great for yarn tied quilts. Yarn tying quilts is a really old method of finishing your quilt to make sure the layers all stick together, and all you need is a skein of yarn and a yarn needle to create this cute yarn tie technique. I love to do this for little projects like baby quilts or even a little Barbie quilt. This swimsuit Barbie is freezing, so I made her a little quilt and my girls are obsessed with it. This only took me about 10 minutes, including tying all that yarn. This next project is probably the most genius one. Grab some pool noodles if they are in season at your store. My dog got a hold of these and chewed them all up, but I forgive her because she's adorable. And they still work even though they're chewed up. So this is a great way to store quilts. When you fold your quilts and store them for long periods of time, they are going to have really massive creases. This will cause your quilt to wear unevenly and is not the best way to preserve the quality of your quilt. So instead, grab a pool noodle or two if your quilt is long and roll it up on the noodle. Then you can use the noodle to hold it with a few pins. Just stick the pins right through all those layers. This is a crease-free way to store your quilts until you're ready to give them to somebody or pull them out for use. This could be a great way to store seasonal quilts that you only use at certain seasons of the year. Now I have another great hack for quilters. Grab a flannel-backed tablecloth and some push pins. This is going to create an awesome design wall for quilting. So just use your pins to hang this up somewhere in your sewing space or in your home, and the felt acts like a felt board to the fabric, sticking it on without using any adhesives. So you can put your blocks where you think you want them and change it around until you have the perfect design without harming the fabric. And this is so fun to visualize your quilt, especially if you're using a bunch of quilt blocks and you want to know where you should put them on your quilt. Just use this design wheel to get it all figured out. This next project might be the most genius. This project uses slap bracelets that you can find in the party favor section, and we are going to use them to make a wrist pincushion for your sewing space. These slap bracelets are so fun. I love slap bracelets. I always have. And so I'm excited to have an excuse to use them in my sewing room. I also picked up some fat quarters from the fabric section, and there are a few materials you'll also need to go with this, including this printable pattern that you can get on my website, stuffing, and interfacing. I used a medium weight interfacing that I already had on hand, but there is interfacing at the Dollar Tree if you need. We will also need a glue gun. We're going to start out by ironing out your fabric just to get all those creases out, and then grabbing a piece of interfacing large enough to go underneath your pattern pieces. So we're going to cut 2 main pattern pieces and 1 loop. So I am using a scrap and making sure it's big enough. Then I'm going to fuse the interfacing to the back of the fabric. Once I'm done with that, I'm just going to trim away extra fabric and interfacing to get it out of the way, making sure I have enough to cover all my pattern pieces again. After I've trimmed, I like to press around the fabric again to make sure the edges of the interfacing are sticking to the fabric. Now we're going to cut out our pattern pieces. We want 2 main pieces, so I'm going to cut these on a piece of folded fabric, not on the fold, but that way I get 2 layers out of my pattern. The pattern pieces make this super easy, but if you prefer to use measurements, this piece is 5 inches by 2.5 inches. Next, we're going to cut out 1 piece with the loop pattern piece. This piece is 4 inches by 2.5 inches. Now we are ready to start assembling. First, lay the main pieces together, right sides together. We are going to sew around with a 1/4 inch seam allowance, leaving about 1 inch open on one of the long sides. Clip the corners and then trim down the seam allowance to about 1/8 of an inch. And then we're going to turn right side out using a chopstick to help you get those points. When you are turning the corners, to avoid a rounded corner and get that point out, I like to use a pin to help me pull that seam out so I get more of a crisp point. Give this a nice press, and then we are going to assemble the loop that goes around to attach the wrist pincushion to the bracelet. Start by folding under 1/4 inch on your long side of your loop piece. Now we're going to fold this over again with the other side overlapping. We want the loop to be about 1 inch wide, so just overlap those as shown and press. Then sew right over that to hold it in place. Plug in your glue gun, and we are going to glue the loop around our bracelet. Mine is a little bit long, so I just trimmed it off. Then we're just going to glue to the back side of the bracelet and flip it over. We want the seam of these 2 ends of the loop to be on the top of the slap bracelet, so the pattern side. The glue will hold the fabric really well, especially if you press to make sure the glue gets into the fibers of the fabric. So be generous and then hold that down until it dries a little bit, pressing the glue into the fabric. Now we're going to add glue on top of those layers and put the wrist pincushion on it before we stuff it. So we're just going to center that and keep the length of the pincushion parallel with the slap bracelet. Press that down again to get the glue layers in there and then let it dry. Once that's dry, check it to make sure it is on there and has a good hold. And then we're going to stuff it with our fiber fill stuffing. I like to make my pincushions have a pretty good amount of stuffing inside, so just stuff it until you like the way it looks. And then we're going to grab a needle and thread and do a ladder stitch to close up that opening. Once you're done, tie it off and your slap bracelet is ready to use. You can slap this on your wrist and then stick your pins inside. The best part is that the slap bracelet is thick enough to protect you from hitting yourself with the pin, but still be careful as you're putting them in. For this next project, we are going to take a basic hand towel and spruce it up with an applique shape. So I found my favorite fat quarter from the craft section, and then you can print off this applique towel template. This is a cute heart. You'll also need Heat and Bond Ultra. This is the one in the red package. This is great for appliquing, but they don't sell it at the dollar store. We're going to start by cutting out heart template, and then cut a piece of Heat and Bond big enough to cover the template. Then open up your fat quarter, and we are just going to cut out a piece big enough for the Heat and Bond. That way we can get the rest out of our way. My fabric always comes off those fat quarter rolls really crinkled up, so I like to give it a press. And then we're going to put the Heat and Bond sticky side down right on that fabric and use your iron to secure that onto the fabric. Before we peel it off, we need it to dry all the way. So wait a second and then peel the backing off. After you peel the paper backing off, you will see the shiny adhesive has stuck to the fabric and it is dry. So now we're going to put the heart template on the top of that fabric and cut it out really carefully using your fabric scissors. Make sure that when you are cutting, you are putting the scissors right in your last cut so that you get a smooth edge, and then carefully curve around the top curves of the heart. Now we're going to open up this towel, just clip off those little plastic things that hold it together, remove the tag, and then we're going to open this up and find the center. The marks of the fold will help you find the center, and I'm just going to find a nice place for my heart and then use an iron to press it on. As you press, that Heat and Bond will reactivate and melt into the towel. Then we're going to sew around the applique 1/8 inch from those raw edges. I like to use a smaller straight stitch, so about 2 millimeters or 2.2 millimeters, somewhere in there. Make sure you pivot at the points and go slowly around the top curves of the heart so you get a nice stitch. Once you're done, clip those threads and your applique towel is ready to use. I like to fold it back how it came, and then you can loop this over a towel holder in your bathroom, and these also make really cute gifts. This next project uses faux fur. I didn't know that the dollar store had this until I saw it at one of my stores. This is just the cutest little piece of fur that is perfect for a craft project. So today I'm going to show you how to make a pom-pom out of fur that you can add to different projects. You can download this printable on my website. We're also going to need embroidery floss and an embroidery needle and just a little bit of fiberfill stuffing. Click the link in the description to access the pom-pom printable file. This has 3 different sizes. Today I'm going to make a medium size, and this will be a pom-pom that you can make a keychain with or add it to the top of a beanie. Once you have your pattern piece cut out, fold your fur in half. We're going to cut this out on the fold. We want the right sides to be together since it'll be much easier to cut on the back side. So faux fur is kind of has a high loft, so you're going to want to make sure you press this pattern piece down pretty well as you pin it. Then go ahead and cut around the pattern piece. You might have to clean up the edges like me after you have cut it out. Faux fur is notoriously hard to work with, so don't stress out about it too much. This needs to be mostly a circle, but it doesn't have to be totally perfect. Thread your needle and tie a knot on the end of the embroidery floss. And now we're going to use our hand needle to make gathering stitches. I'm making my stitches about 1/4 inch long with 1/4 inch in between, and these will be used to pull the edges of the faux fur into the pom-pom ball shape. Leave your needle on and pull together, adjusting as you go. Then finish those last few stitches, leaving that ungathered so that we have a space to put the stuffing in. Add your fiberfill stuffing. You'll just need a little bit to make your pom-pom hold its shape. And then once you're finished stuffing, we are going to sew the opening closed by using our needle to make stitches across that opening in kind of a random pattern. So just go across the opening, stick your needle in, and grab that fur on the other side. Make sure you're hitting the fur whenever you're making these stitches, and then we are going to tie this off with a couple of knots to hold it. When you're done, leave the pom-pom on that string with the needle attached. We are going to use that string to attach it to the beanie, or if you're making a keychain, you can use the string to attach it to the keychain. Use the lint roller to clean up all the fur on your work surface. I'm going to attach my pom-pom to the top of this cute beanie I found also at the Dollar Tree. To do this, you just need to put the needle through the top of your beanie and then attach it with a couple of stitches. I like to make the stitches go into the beanie and then back into the fur a few times to hold it on before tying it off. And now you have an adorable beanie with a custom pom-pom on top. I thought this tag was super cute from the dollar store, so I'm going to put this back on and it is ready to give as a gift. This next project is reusable hand warmers that are full of rice. These are made with flannel. You can find flannel with the fabric in the craft section, and these are 100% cotton flannel fabric pieces, which is great because we need it to be 100% cotton so that we can reheat these warmers in the microwave. Click the link in my description to download the template. While you're at the dollar store, grab a bag of rice. This is going to be our filling. Just make sure it's not minute rice. Iron your flannel, and we're going to cut 2 layers using the main pattern piece. Lay the 2 pieces together, right sides together, and we're going to sew around the whole thing, leaving an inch opening using a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Then go ahead and clip the corners and trim the seam allowance down. Turn the hand warmer right side out. I like to use a chopstick to help me do this. Then give your hand warmer a good press, keeping the edges of that opening turned under to match with the side edges. Now we are going to fill this up with our rice. Rice is a great way to make a reusable hand warmer. You can put it in the microwave or the dryer to heat them up. Make sure you are very careful and have only used 100% cotton materials if you are going to put it in the microwave, and use at your own risk. I found this funnel in the kitchen section of the Dollar Tree, and I have had it in my sewing room as a craft funnel. So if you need a craft funnel, you can pick one up. This comes in a set of 3, also at the Dollar Tree. Now we're going to put about a 1/4 cup of rice into our hand warmer. I recommend measuring out a little bit less than a 1/4 cup. I put a little bit too much in my hand warmer and it was hard to sew around the edges. So be sure not to overstuff it. Once you have enough rice in there, pin it down, and you can either sew just that one open edge or sew all the way around. You may have to shift the rice around a little to finish these edges. Just make sure you're not sewing over the grains of rice. And then once you have done that, your hand warmer is done. One piece of flannel will make quite a few of these. I love to have a stack on hand when the weather gets cold. This next project is actually a no-sew project, but it's a great way to showcase some cute fabrics. So I found these wood planks that are 4.5 inches square, and I knew they would make some great coasters. So all you need for this project is Mod Podge, some fabric, brushes, and the planks, and these are all available on the craft aisle at the Dollar Tree. I also like to use some wax paper to keep my surface clean so these don't stick while we're making them. The first step will be to open your fabric and iron it out so that it's nice and smooth. I am using this cute flamingo fabric. I've had this for a while and I just wanted to make sure I was using it on a project where you could really see the flamingos, and this is a great one. Once your fabric is flat, we are going to cut around our square using that as a template. We just need about 3/4 inches extra fabric around the square. So I didn't measure, I just used that as kind of my guide. We are going to be pretty generous with the Mod Podge, so I'm just dipping right out of the container. First, make a thick layer on your coaster, and then put it on the back side of your fabric and press down. Then cut the corners, leaving about 1/8 of an inch of fabric at the point of each corner. Now grab your Mod Podge again, and we are going to put Mod Podge on the sides, and then flip up the fabric and secure it on the back of the coaster. You can kind of flip this up and use the wax paper to push that fabric down really smoothly. And then once you have your edges nice and your corners are looking good, we're going to cover the whole thing with another layer of Mod Podge. Just be generous with this. Mod Podge dries really hard, so it's going to give our coaster a nice hard and brittle feel. And it's a really neat effect with the fabric because it won't be soft, but it will really showcase the fabric well and makes a great coaster. I like to make a set of 4 or 6 of these. The planks come in a package of 6, so you can make a little set as a gift or for your home. Let these dry for a couple of hours, and then once they are dry and hard, your coasters will be ready to use. If you have a baby to sew for, this project is for you. Tag blankets are great for babies and toddlers. They're kind of a sensory toy with different textures of ribbons and fabrics that will keep them busy and learning. For this project, you will need a cotton fat quarter. You can use flannel or quilter's cotton. I'm going to use this unicorn one. We're going to use a fleece baby blanket for the back, and then grab a few ribbons. It's fun to have a variety of ribbons for this project. We're also going to use lightweight fusible interfacing. We're going to use this to stabilize the fleece. So our first step is to grab a piece of interfacing and fuse it to the back of the fleece. You just want this to be at least big enough for the pattern piece, which is 10 inches by 10 inches. Then cut out a layer from your interfaced fleece and 1 layer from your fabric. These are 10 by 10, or you can use the pattern download that's available in the description below. Now grab your ribbons, and we're going to cut pieces of ribbon into different lengths from 3 inches to 5 inches. We are going to put 5 ribbons on each side of this blanket, so we need a total of 20. I have 5 different ribbons, so I am cutting 4 of each. Now fold the ribbons in half and pin them as loops onto the front of the fabric with 5 on each side. You can space these however you want, just don't get them too close to the corner since we need to sew that corner, and we don't want the ribbon to fall off of the project once we turn it right side out. When you have all 20 ribbons pinned on, baste around the fabric to secure the ribbons in place. Then remove all the pins. To assemble the tag blanket, place your fleece face down on top of the front fabric with all the ribbons enclosed inside. Pin the corners and stick a few pins in there to keep it together, and then we're going to sew around the edges with a 3/8 inch seam allowance, leaving a little opening about 1.5 to 2 inches. Remove all your pins and then clip the corners and trim the ribbon ends, and then you can turn this right side out. Use a turning tool to get the corners pushed out, and then press this well. When you press, you can also pin that opening shut. And our last step is to top stitch around the top of the fabric, closing the opening as you go. And then your tag blanket is done. Now I'm going to show you how to make a hooded towel using towels from the bath section of the Dollar Tree. We're going to need 2 towels for this project. You can use a seasonal towel or just regular towels, and then the printable pattern that you can find in the description below. So we're going to use 2 towels for this, but we're only going to use a little bit of the second towel. So if you are wanting to make more than one of these, you don't necessarily need 2 towels for each project. So open up your towel, and then we're going to place the pattern piece on the edge and at the corner. That way we have 2 finished edges at the bottom and the front of the hood, and so we won't have to finish those edges. So pin that in place and cut out 2 hood pieces from 2 different corners. For the second hood piece, flip your pattern piece upside down so that we get the mirror image version of the hood piece. Now that you have 2 hood pieces, we're going to place them together, right sides together, and pin along the curved edge. Now sew around the curved edge with a straight stitch 3/8 inch from the raw edges, and then go over the seam allowance with a zigzag stitch. Turn that right side out, and then grab your other towel and find the middle point on one of the long edges. And I just like to mark that with a pin. Pin the hood with right sides together in the middle of the towel using your pin and the middle of the hood to match up those midpoints. Then sew the hood on with a zigzag stitch. Make sure you backstitch at the ends of your stitching line, and then your hooded towel is ready to be used for bath time and pool time. Next, I'm going to show you how to make a Kindle cover, and this has a secret inside, a microfiber cloth that will keep it clean. For this tablet cover, you can download the pattern piece from my website. The link is in the description below. We're gonna need a fat quarter of cotton cloth that you can find at the dollar store, and then microfiber cloth. We're gonna line it with this, and this way it'll keep our screen super clean every time we put it away. I found the microfiber in the auto section of the dollar store. And then we're also gonna need lightweight fusible interfacing. Let's get started by fusing the interfacing to the back of the cotton fabric. Use the pattern piece to cut 2 layers from the fabric and 2 layers from the microfiber. If you prefer to use measurements instead of the pattern piece, you can pause the screen now. The measurement is 8.5 inches by 6.25 inches. And this is designed to fit a Kindle Paperwhite that's about 4.5 inches by 6.5 inches, and it will fit other tablets about the same size too. After you've done that, we're gonna sew 1 piece of cotton fabric to 1 piece of microfiber with the right sides together, sewing along the top edge with a 3/8 inch seam allowance. Repeat with the second piece so you have 2 of these. Open them up and press the seam allowance toward the cotton fabric. And then we're going to top stitch along that cotton about 1/8 of an inch from the seam. This top stitching will help keep our Kindle cover aligned correctly with the microfiber lining inside. Place the 2 pieces together with right sides together, matching the cotton on the cotton side and the microfiber on the microfiber side. Pin all the way around and sew the edges, pivoting at the corners and leaving 1 to 2 inches open in the microfiber lining. You can use a zigzag stitch on the microfiber to prevent stretching as you're sewing. Clip the corners before you turn this, and then turn right side out through your opening. Press well and then stitch the opening closed. Then you can push the lining inside your tablet sleeve. Give that a final press, and then you're ready to slip in your Kindle or tablet. Next, I grabbed this clear organizer case. It just looks like it was made to be a sewing kit. Grab this container in the office supplies section. The compartments in this organizer are the perfect size for little notions that you need in a sewing kit. Stick your favorite threads, needles, scissors, and embroidery floss for on-the-go sewing. If you like to sew a lot of the same thing all at once, this hack's for you. These are basic manila file folders that you can find in the office supply section. And we're going to use these to make sturdy templates. Whenever I am batch sewing and using a paper pattern, my pattern is usually worn out by the time I'm done with a couple of my projects. To make a thicker template that lasts longer, trace your paper pattern on the manila folder and cut it out. Now just use your template as you would any other paper template. You can still use pins with these templates, and you can cut multiple layers all at once. If you are always losing your scissors, this hack is for you. This next hack involves these retractable card holders. So these are found in the office supply section, and this is something a teacher might wear for their badge. But we're going to use this to create a holder for our scissors so that we can keep them handy. So just find your little scissors. I like to have these little scissors for cutting threads off of my project as I'm sewing. If you like to do embroidery, something like this is great to have handy. So unsnap your retractable cord holder, and we're just going to snap it over the scissors. I'm going to put it on this side, and then you have this clippable scissor holder. You can clip this on your shirt, and then your scissors are always right where you can find them. You can find these wire bins in the organizing section. They're super cute gold wire, and they are the perfect size for pre-cut fabrics. These bins hold 5-inch charm packs perfectly. You can flip through them easily and find your fabrics. They're also great for a stack of fat quarters. Lint rollers are a necessity in your sewing room. I love this little mini 2-pack that I found at the dollar store, and I'm going to show you how to use it. If you like to sew with pre-cut fabrics, you probably know that the edges shed so many little fibers. Use a lint roller to clean them up super quickly. This will also get all the extra threads off your projects. If you sew a lot, you probably have a few pencils that need sharpening from time to time. I use fabric marking pencils to mark my fabric, and also wax transfer pencils for embroidery projects. But when I need to sharpen them, I never have a sharpener handy, so that's why I recommend getting one of these. While you're in the office supply section, grab a pack of binder clips. Binder clips are a great way to hold fabrics together while you sew them. These are especially great when you're holding a bunch of layers together, like when you're quilting or attaching binding. I love binder clips for this because they're much stronger than a sewing clip. This little tin is just a little holder but it has a magnet on the back. So if you have magnetic storage, it's great, but I'm going to show you a little trick for using this with your sewing. This holder is just the right size for a bunch of pins or safety pins. I love that you can use the magnet on the back to pick up pins and hold them while you're working on a project. Next, the bath section has hand towels, which is a great little piece of terry cloth fabric. These come in a few different colors and they're about the size of a fat quarter, which means you can use it for a lot of little projects. These are great for absorbent projects like burp cloths or reusable paper towels. I was so excited to find boba tea straws. These are bubble straws. They are used in any drinks like boba or a drink that has tapioca pearls. This is a 50 pack, so it's a lot, but I'm going to show you why you need at least one of these in your sewing room. This is the best hack for turning tubes and straps. You will never go back to your old way. For this, you just need one boba straw and a chopstick. I couldn't find chopsticks at the dollar store, but I had one on hand. This works with tubes of fabric that either have one open end or both open ends. The first step is to stick your boba straw into the tube that is turned inside out. And then at the top, we are going to push the chopstick down, catching that fabric, and push the chopstick through the straw. As you push the chopstick down, the fabric will come out on the other side of the straw, right side out. Dollar Tree has these adorable little iron-on patches, and they have so many designs. These are $1.25, and you get 2. In this case, you get 4. These are great for decorating clothes and bags, also for repairing them. And I like to use patches to reinforce the knees on my kids' leggings. Before applying, take off the glue dot from the back of your patch, then place it on your clothing wherever you want it. Use a press cloth, which is just 100% cotton, to press your patch until the glue melts. This should take about 15 to 20 seconds. Press from the other side so you get the back of the patch. This is a quick and fun project that will make your kids' pants last longer. This next item is a little spendy. This is from the $5 section, but it is a rotating bath organizer. This is the perfect little organizer to have at your sewing table because it holds all the items you might need to grab. Keep it next to your sewing machine filled with your rotary cutters, scissors, fabric markers, and anything you might want to keep handy. Over in the laundry section, I found this scarf hanger, and we're going to use it to hold fabric. Apparel fabrics can often be hard to store because they don't fold super well and they're hard to stack. So this is a great hack for holding those drapey fabrics like knits. Just pull your fabric through the holes and then hang it up. My dollar store only had one of these hangers, but I need to find some more because they are perfect for displaying your fabric so you can easily find it. I have a great hack for these removable hooks and your sewing machine. We're just going to use one of these hooks. They already have the sticky part attached to the back, so peel off that backing paper, and you can see that there's a little edge there. We're going to use that to guide our fabric with a seam guide. So just push it down where you want it on your sewing machine. Now use the clip as your seam guide to get even seams. This is a little bit wider of a seam allowance than I normally use, but you can align your needle to the right to make it smaller. And when you're done, just remove it by pulling on the strip. Thanks for sewing with me today. For more Dollar Tree sewing hacks, click the video above.